I'd like to call the meeting of the Somerset Berkeley Regional School Committee to order at 6:31 p.m. Due notice having been posted. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions may be made whether perceived or unperceived by those present. Roll call of members present. Mrs. Gagliardi?
Here.
Mr. Pierce?
Here.
Mr. Ghilarducci?
Here.
Mrs. Field?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mr. Machado should be joining us shortly, and the chair is also present, as well as Ms. Janie Sylvia, our student representative. We're also joined this evening by the Director of Business and Finance, Mr. Ronald Taro. The Superintendent of Schools, Jeffrey Schoonover, will be joining us shortly. We are also joined this evening by Robin Vaccaro, our recording secretary. Everyone, can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could please have everyone please observe a moment of silence for Somerset Fire Chief Scott Jepson, who passed away recently. Thank you. The next meeting of the Somerset Regional School Committee, or the Somerset Berkeley Regional School Committee, is scheduled for Thursday, February 6th at 6:30 at Somerset Berkeley Regional High School. We are going to, at the committee's okay, we're going to move around the agenda just a little bit as we wait for Mr. Schoonover to join us. And the Director of Curriculum, Ms. Elizabeth Haskell, has now joined us as well. So we can start under Student Achievement, Teaching and Learning. Item number 1 is our Student Representative Report.
Hi everyone, I hope you all had a good holidays. So things going on today, like you had talked about, Chief Jepson, we had a memorial. All the students and teachers, if they wanted to, went out and they lined up on Luther just to show support as they drove by the school. Along with that, the Student Council has been collecting money over the past few days for a hat day, which is going to be this Friday, and all that money is going towards Chief Jepson's memorial. Along with that, today we also had a DECA competition. I know Mr. G's going to be talking about that later, but we had that today. Was the team decision making and principals were today, and then yesterday was solo DECA members.
Where was that?
In Mansfield, the holiday in Mansfield. And also hockey and basketball and the other sports are doing well. Show choir is getting ready for their spring show called Ghost, so I know that they're going through that. We just came back from winter break. I'm sure everyone's getting back into the swing of the schedule, waking up early. So that's all, if anyone has any questions.
Thank you.
If I could just congratulate Janie, first of all, again, congratulations for winning the state championship, but they were mostly recently recognized by the Herald News as some kind of an all-star, SEC all-star,
Yes,
something like
that
that.
was the Herald.
Let me know if I have the names right. It was yourself,
Yep.
Kaylee, Madison,
Yep.
Lucas,
Yes.
Cam, and Lauren.
Yes. And
What name is it?
Alex.
Alex Moore, yeah. So congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Any questions or comments? No? The next item on the agenda is approval of the ski trip to Smuggler's Notch, January 24th to 26th.
How's everybody doing?
Hey, don't coach.
Happy New Year, though.
Happy New Year.
So, this year we'll be attending again Smuggler's Notch Mountain up in south side of Stowe, Vermont. We'll be leaving 124, coming back 126. I believe on a Friday morning, so we can get up there nice and early and enjoy the day skiing Friday and Saturday and most of the day on Sunday. So. The trip's $304 this year. It's 100% student funded. And just to go over quickly the justification and the rationale of why we do this. Ski trips have been a part of local schools for decades. It's beneficial to students in a variety of ways. It brings together students from varying and different backgrounds, creates new friendships, and increases interactions between students and teachers. It also engages the students' body in kinesthetic learning style to challenge students to think while moving. It also helps them lift their confidence to overcome obstacles and find success. Ski and snowboarding trips can also set students on new positive learning journeys and create new passionate hobbies that they can do for their life. I learned how to ski on a school ski trip when I was in high school, which I still do now. So. This is also a great way for students to have a different form of interaction with their teachers, who can be seen as a positive role model, not only in school, but outside the classroom. We get here nice and early. We're hoping to leave this year at 5 a.m. and so we can get up there for late morning and get the kids their lift tickets and get them out for the day. So it's usually it's a real fun trip. This year we have 61 kids going, and we're hopefully looking to run another trip in March. Conditions look great. Excited to go and just asking for all the approval.
2 buses this time?
We have one coach bus, and then we're going to be taking a van from the school.
Okay.
So we're still going to be packed pretty tight, as you know.
I remember.
Coach Rick says dinner students, like they're on their own for dinner.
So what happened, they used to supply breakfast on Saturday morning and Sunday morning, and then Saturday night. They wanted to charge about an extra $30 for that this year, and based upon talking to students in the past and even how much of them actually ate the dinner that was at the mountain or ate the breakfast at the mountain, the numbers were I think last year was less than half. So what's really nice about Smuggler's Notch, it's a completely contained mountain. There's no place for kids to escape or hide as far as at least as a mountain goes. And the condos are full kitchens, so these kids bring up and they make feasts. I mean, so we decided that it would be a little bit cheaper, kind of save some money, and they can take that $30 and buy some good food here and bring it up. So.
I bet last year, a lot of the groups made their own feasts.
They bring it, yeah.
Yeah, they bring a lot of food. How many
Could I
chaperones?
just, yeah.
So chaperones we have 5 right now. I might have a spot for a 6th one. I mean, right now we're really I usually try to keep the ratio about 1 to 11 because each condo houses 12 people, so try to have 1 staff member in each condo. So it usually works out.
I think our policy requires, or if not, because there was some confusion about our policy, we usually have a requirement that the principal has to approve the number of chaperones. So that should be run by the principal and make sure that he gives his blessing to the number of chaperones that are going. There are 2 other issues that I just wanted to remind you. I've reminded some others regarding trips. There have been some recent decisions from the Ethics Commission. If any faculty member is going to have any expenses paid through student contributions, there's a requirement of filing a form with the Ethics Commission. So that information is available at the central office, and you should be sure that you comply with that, because the superintendent pointed out that some faculty members in the western part of the state were fined for not having complied with these ethics regulations. And I'm going to vote in favor of this, but one thing that kind of caused my ears to perk up at the winter sports night was that the athletic director mentioned that if athletes participate in this trip and miss either a practice or a game, that may result in some discipline in the sense of not being able to play in the next upcoming game. And I've heard also some conflicting statements that this is a school activity and it's not a school activity. It's clearly a school activity. You come here every year for approval from the school committee. So I'd like to see if there's a way that we can work with the athletic director so that athletic events, at least for next year, are not scheduled to conflict with this trip, so that we don't have basketball players or perhaps winter track or those students who might want to take advantage of this trip being penalized for, or being faced with the choice of not being able to go on this trip, or going on the trip and then not being able to play in a game. And particularly if it's an important game, you know, it's a big game of the season, and it could determine playoff berth or something like that. So I hope we can, that's why I wish the superintendent were here, so I hope we can focus on that for next year.
So what we've done the past probably 5 years is held a trip the week before the Super Bowl. So that's a kind of like a locked-in date for us. So that's something that going forward that maybe the athletic director can take a look at and try to clear some events. I mean, I know it's tough. It's especially when the snow comes and the rescheduling all that. I'm sure it could be a challenge for him to do it. So, but yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Well, just so the athletic director knows that it's something that the committee would like him to take a look at. So we'll follow up with the superintendent.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much.
It's like a tradition now.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a good one.
Thank you.
Next item under student achievement, teaching and learning is MCAS results and strategies. Just ask if you want to take that, or do you want to wait for Mr. Stonover?
We're
Okay.
going to wait for the superintendent for that.
Okay.
Sorry, Matt.
No, it's all right.
We want the superintendent to be here for this. At least I think it would be appropriate.
Fair enough. Let's move ahead to budget and financial matters. Item number 1, approval of monthly invoices for the purposes of educational supplies and materials, professional development, special education tuitions and transportation, maintenance costs, fringe benefits, and other operating expenditures. So we have a number of vouchers to sign this evening. Does anyone have any questions or concerns on those that can be directed to Mr. Taro? Hearing none, I would ask that all members of the committee please sign these before they leave this evening. Item number 2, vote to rescind the authorized unissued borrowing authority of the now completed Somerset Berkeley Regional High School project. Mr. Taro, do you have any comments on that?
No, just based on the request of the committee, bond council did draft language for us to vote and approve. So that would resolve the issue, that open issue that was recommended by the auditors last year.
So,
No.
and we have in our packet the language that was recommended by the bond council, but just to give a little context on that, at the last budget meeting, one of the things we went over was the audit from the previous year, and one of the comments in that audit was that the school district had yet to rescind the authorized unissued debt. If you recall, when we first started this building project, we were asked to get town approval for the entire amount of the project, but with the understanding that the MSBA would be providing about 66% reimbursement. So because that full authorization is out there, we need, as a district, to vote on rescinding that authorized unissued debt. And so what we did at that budget meeting is asked Mr. Taro to consult with our bond counsel to see what the best way to go about that would be. And I think what we have in front of us in the packet is the vote of the school committee to rescind that authorized and unissued debt. So if you want to take a look at it, we can have a little more discussion on it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote that all amounts authorized to be borrowed but not yet issued by the district to design and construct the Somerset Berkeley Regional High School, which are no longer necessary to complete that project, are hereby rescinded and of no further force or effect.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, call to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that?
I think maybe we should take a roll call vote since it involves bond.
Okay.
So I'll move that we take a roll call vote on this.
Okay.
We need a second on that motion. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second on roll call. All in favor of a roll call vote? Aye.
Aye.
So by roll call, Mrs. Gagliardi,
Aye.
Mr. Pierce.
Aye.
Mr. Giliducci.
Aye.
Mrs. Field.
Aye.
Mr. McDonald.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Okay, I'm not sure where else this goes other than our record. I don't know if it's a letter then that has to be forwarded to both communities to let them know that we had this vote. I'm just wondering. And if we're not sure, we can always check on that, but I think the first step was to actually have the vote. And then we can figure out how best to inform the two communities that have done so.
The communication I received from fiscal advisor via the bond council indicated the vote just need to be taken at the school committee, and it does not need to go to the member towns for a vote from them. But I think a communication to them would be good to let them know that it was rescinded.
Okay. All right, so
I agree with that.
we can have that letter drafted just to notify them.
So do we want to vote? Do we need to vote on it?
I don't think so. I think that's just a
Okay.
follow-up to it. Thank you.
Item number 3, budget transfers.
So I don't have a completed report for you, but I do want to report out a couple of items that I'm working on. There's some areas that required actually some adjusting reclassification entries, and I didn't have an opportunity to complete those, therefore I didn't have an opportunity to complete the request to transfer funds. A couple of the areas that I am a little concerned about is maybe over in the school resource officer line item because of some expenses, and I think that I just have to get a better handle on why the expenses are going to be a little bit higher than anticipated in the budget. Most of them are just journal entries that are going to be transferring or reclassifying expenses. For the most part, we're in pretty good shape with all the salary accounts and everything else, so you will have this report completed probably within the next week or so. As I start developing the budget, I'm starting to drill into these accounts too, so I understand the accounts as well, so.
So if I can just clarify, so that at this point you're taking a look at where everything stands as far as budget transfers that might be needed. The only one you've identified might be the school resource, specifically right at this point.
That's one of them in the employee payroll tax. I'm just not sure why it's over.
Okay.
There's some encumbrances that are put in there, so I don't know if they're true expenditures, and that's really going to be an actual commitment, or it's just a hold off on that particular account, so.
So I know we have a budget meeting on Tuesday of next week, so I don't know if you'll have any information on that at that point.
I should have that wrapped up for you to present out to the budget committee
Okay.
in a more detailed report and give you a recommendation. We can review those, and then we can bring it to the full committee.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Item number 4, consider signing monthly invoices electronically.
So we actually did a little bit of a test model, and we did report this out to the K-8 side school committee. There is an opportunity where we can actually electronically sign the cover page of the warrant electronically via authentication with your Google login.
Oh.
And we're just trying to figure out what's the best way to get the information to you. We give you the summary list, but we're thinking about how we can actually scan the documents themselves, the invoices, and send those off to you as well, because that was a concern on the K-8 side, that you can physically see the scanned invoices, so when you're reviewing them, you feel comfortable signing off on them.
Okay.
So that avoids the need to come into the district and sign the warrants.
Would we be using that only on the midpoints where we don't have a meeting present, and then when scheduled, and then?
Yeah, so like
Otherwise, it would be
tonight's a
normally
good
as we see.
example. We won't have to do that for tonight's meeting,
Yeah.
but if we have time constraints and we're trying to get the warrants processed and the checks cut, and it may delay that process, we would probably defer off to that.
Is that using a system like DocuSign or something?
We started out with DocuSign, but we actually have the software, it's through Adobe,
Okay.
and it actually just locks in your signature, and there's two ways to do it. By authenticating, it would drop my name into the document, Jeff did his, and it dropped his name into the document. But we could also scan signatures in, and it would be just assigned to you, and you could use your actual scanned signature if you choose to do so.
This is something that is being utilized by other districts, so we would not be unique.
I have not reached out to any of the districts. I did reach out to legal counsel just to see if there was any restriction prohibiting us, and there is no restrictions to allowing us to sign documents. In fact, some of the responses I received back were a lot of the documents, legal documents we do are already done electronically, so it could be new in Massachusetts. I could try to reach out to some colleagues to see if anybody's tried this.
There is a difference between warrants and legal documents, correct? There's certain documents.
Well, I think the warrant isn't the warrant considered a legal I'm not,
Well, there are so many different types of legal documents. That's why I was wondering if we had anyone else who was doing this very same practice, so at least we were not inventing the wheel.
let me reach out to some colleagues to see if I can get some feedback from anybody who may have tried it.
Okay. You have any thoughts, Mr. Pierce?
Just a couple. One is if one or more members of the committee had a reservation about a particular warrant item, it only takes a majority of committee members to sign the warrant, but those committee members that had a concern wouldn't have an opportunity to express it because of the open meeting law. So that's just something we should think about as we approach the issue. And then the other is the preliminary discussions we've had at the policy subcommittee meeting, that I wouldn't have any problem signing the payroll in that manner because it's generally those expenditures are fixed. There's not much issue with them, and those are generally the items that need to be signed between meetings. I have some reservation extending it much beyond that unless we had some built-in process, but we can, I'm certainly open to exploring it.
Sure. And if I could just say for a second, as I think I am the one who lives the furthest away from all of the places where the vouchers are kept. And I think it's a fantastic idea. I really do. Anything that's going to improve efficiency and make it easier for you to do your job and get everything paid in a timely manner is fantastic. So I would be really curious if there's anybody else who's already done this ahead of us.
It's a fair question.
Yeah. So, any more discussion on this? I would assume that you'd bring this back to us in February?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we approved it this past week at our meeting, and I guess, I like to actually go in and talk to people and stuff like that, so they left it as an option just for me, if I wanted to also have that option.
Yeah, we're not trying to deter anybody coming in to see us at central office. We actually like seeing everybody coming in, but I know sometimes the weather may not permit to as well. So.
Yeah, very true.
The thing that raises my concern is the statute that talks about the committee being able to designate one person to sign warrants says specifically in it that it does not relieve the committee members of their individual liability with respect to the warrants. So we just have to be a little cautious about it.
Understood.
So we'll have more information on the February meeting, kind of figure out where.
I'll do my best to try to reach out to some colleagues to see if anybody's done that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, approval of auditor's OPEB report.
Okay, as a result of our 2018 auditor's recommendation and the new OPEB accounting standards, what you have here is a valuation of our current OPEB liability. Just for the purpose of the audience and to refresh this group's memory, because I don't think we included the auditor's recommendation in with the packet. I'll just read briefly. In prior years, we have provided the district with insight regarding its other post-employment benefit liability and the possibility of beginning to fund it. With GASB 75, the most transparent measurement of the liability is now available. That's what you'll see here in this actuarial report. As a result of the district complying with the new GASB 75 in fiscal 2018, a complete, more comprehensive actuarial valuation was required, which this is the resulting product of. I'll get into the details in a little bit. While the district was able to conform to the accounting standards in this situation, the significance in the amount continues to underscore the need for strategic planning and discussions with the member communities to determine how to address this from an economical perspective. Even though the district has established a trust under Chapter 32B, Section 20, the district has yet to make any meaningful contributions to the trust. We urge the district to begin a dialogue with its member communities and determine the options available to address this. This was back in 2018. Since that time of the recommendation from the auditor, we've had the actuarial valuation done. The OPEB trust group, which right now consists of myself and Dean and Ron, are talking about, with the budget subcommittee, ways that we can start to develop a funding model for this. But the first step in the process is to approve our actuarial report of the valuation of our OPEB expense. So if you turn to page 3, this is as of June 30th, 2019. Our total OPEB liability for the district is $20,522,747. Actuarial value of assets, that's contributions that we've made since we've opened the OPEB fund, our investment fund, it's $74,448 as of June 30, 2019. The markets have been favorable this year. I think we're a little bit over or close to 80,000, so slight adjustment based on what gains we've had at this point through the year. The rest of this document just goes through a little bit more detail of the contributions and the disclosures. If you have any questions, or Dean, if there's anything you'd like to add at this point, you can. Or if Ron, if there's anything that you'd like to add, or if there's any questions from the group on the report itself, we can answer them for you.
So as far as the process is concerned, you're looking for the committee to take a look at it, ask any questions, and essentially kind of give an overall approval of the receipt of this actuarial.
Correct. So we're only approving the actuarial report of our OPEB as of June 2019. Another step will be talking about how we might start to address funding our OPEB liability going forward. But that's separate. That's not a decision that we're making here. Correct.
So there's certainly a lot of detail in here. Some of it, I know we talked about it briefly at the budget subcommittee meeting, so I understand parts of it. Some of it is a little bit over my head, I will admit. But what is, I think, pretty clear is that there is a significant liability out there in this regard for the district, as there are for all municipalities and districts. So I think I applaud the committee, the two of you, for taking the steps to kind of make sure we know what it is, at least identifying it, and then I think it would be good to come up with a plan, and then it's up to us to converse with the member towns to see how we're going to fund this going forward.
And our auditors, when we met with them, if you recall, they mentioned that this is something that all districts are dealing with. So as Julie mentioned, this is not something that's unique or extremely high just for Somerset. This is something based on the new accounting standards that all districts are facing and looking to see how they're going to fund it. And they're all coming up with different ways to do that based on their budgets. But it's important for the community to know that we will be carrying this liability on our financials going forward, and it's not something that we have done in the past.
I also think it's worth noting that this has been an ongoing conversation over the past handful of years about how we were going to adequately fund our OPEB liability. And I think that we've made some pretty significant strides towards coming up with different approaches that we can bring to the full committee at a later date as to how we want to handle this and how we best think it could be addressed. That is a big number. But I feel confident that we can come up with strategies to address it over long periods of time. And we do have a reasonably long period of time.
My question to the OPEB committee is, so when we became a separate entity in 2010 or 11 or whatever the year was, retirees were included in here, or no? Did we bring over some retirees from the high school, or just?
Yes, right, but wasn't
these
it
are
a result of
benefits,
so I think the way that they counted whether a portion of their retiree benefits fell within the town versus the district changed with the Municipal Modernization Act. And it changed to our detriment rather than to our benefit. Am I correct?
That is accurate.
Well, I believe that anyone who had retired before the regional school district was formed remained the responsibility of the town.
Okay.
People who retired subsequent to the formation of the regional school district, before the Municipal Modernization Act was passed, we were allowed to bill back a prior municipal employer for the proportionate share of the retiree liability, and it was significant for us because, again, under Massachusetts law, we were required to hire and recognize the seniority of all employees who had previously worked for the Somerset School District. So for the first couple of years, we were in fact billing back the town of Somerset for just a couple of retirees who had retired in the period between the formation of the regional school district and the enactment of the Municipal Reform Act. The Municipal Reform Act actually repealed the statute that said we could bill back the community where someone had previously served before they came to work for us. Many municipalities weren't bothering to do it, and they felt that it was a bookkeeping nightmare because it potentially had such a significant impact for us. We were doing it, but I think the other thing is that people should understand that this OPEB liability is not something that we have voluntarily assumed. This is a state-mandated requirement that we provide health insurance benefits for retirees. And so this is an actuarial calculation as to what it will cost the district over the next perhaps 40 or 50 years to provide this health insurance benefit, not only to current retirees, but to current employees who will be retiring in the future. So that's what this represents, and that's why the number is as high. I believe the town administrator mentioned at the last special town meeting that the town's OPEB liability is about, and I don't want to exaggerate it, but it's many times as much as the regional school district's OPEB liability.
But I do think that having the discussions now and trying to come up with strategies and potential solutions is beneficial in the long run. And the conversations that we've had at the OPEB subcommittee level have been encouraging. And Mr. Taro's experience, having dealt with similar situations in the past, is certainly going to prove to be an asset for us as we move forward. One of the things that I'm going to make a shameless pitch. The subcommittee is reasonably small, and a board of trustees for an account such as our OPEB is generally larger. So in the coming weeks and months, with Stephanie and I, Mrs. Field and I will be approaching the committee to try to come up with strategies to make the board of trustees a little bit larger and more in accordance with what you traditionally see in other areas or in other OPEB committees.
Yeah, this is driven by accounting standards because at the present time, essentially we pay this liability out of current operating, under our current operating budget. And this is granted a real liability, but at the same time, the expectation that we're going to increase our budget by hundreds of thousands of dollars a year so that we can build up a fund of $20 million to satisfy health insurance payments for retirees that will come, will be due and payable in 20, 30, and 40 years is a real strain for any municipality or school district.
Agreed. And most of the conversation that has taken place at the OPEB subcommittee level has been about trying to find responsible ways to increase the savings in a responsible way over longer periods of time. You know, we're fully aware, having been members of the committee for quite some time, the economic restraints of our two member communities, and certainly we would not want to put forth a plan that put undue strain on our budget or on the municipal budgets of either town. So it is something that I think will change over time, but we have to start somewhere, and this is as good a starting line as any.
And because our time horizon is long for this, we have an opportunity to dedicate funds to a fund that we can use with investment vehicles that can grow it over a longer period of time. So our rate of return would be better since our time horizon is longer. So that's our goal, is to not be able to fund it completely. We understand that there's liabilities and that we need to have some constraint around that, but we should take the opportunity to be able to invest this for that longer term horizon.
I'll make a motion to accept the actuarial report as presented by members of the OPEB subcommittee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous.
Could I just mention something, Stephanie? I had asked you to get a copy of the annual report for the state, the treasurer's, the fund that's
Yes.
managed by the treasurer.
Yes.
And you did email it to me,
Yes.
but it's over 200 pages. Is it possible to request, I imagine they publish it.
I can do an executive summary.
Well, the executive summary is only a couple of pages, but I was wondering if they have
Something
printed copies available that we
Yes.
could request and just have them mail it to us so we don't have to
I would be happy to
print
do
off
that.
200 pages of.
You couldn't do that on the screen, all that reading. I will do that for the next meeting.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda, special education budget / funds budgeted for students who are retained in grade 8. Is this something that you're comfortable with?
I can give you just a quick report of. The savings was approximately $100,000 for those students that were retained at the K-8 side, of which the line item right now for the out-of-district tuition is to the positive of about $65,000. So in essence, the savings we had in that helped offset some additional costs that we had on the region side too. So I think the question was is how much of those students that stayed in, it was about $100,000 savings, but you're not going to see $100,000 savings in that line item when I give you the budget transfers in the monthly reports.
One of the things we talked about at the last budget meeting was that specific issue, and we looked at the budget as a whole. And taking into consideration the volatility of the special education lines in particular, just because we know that things can happen, changes can be made. We're viewing that cautiously, or we're not looking at as a pool of money that we can tap into or transfer in its entirety to any particular area. I think the question was that because that particular line item expense kind of had an offset between the two districts, the K-8 versus the region. We wanted to check in on the status of that and what that looked like, and given all that's going on within those particular line items, we felt it would be best to kind of leave it as it is and look at it periodically. Am I correct in the discussion that we had?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the budget subcommittee will continue to monitor.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any questions or concerns on this item? All right, next item on the agenda is policies for first readings.
Okay.
First item, first policy is the substitute manual.
Okay, so you have a number of policies for review. I can walk through them and just kind of highlight some of the small changes that we have for first reading with each of them. So for the substitute manual, you'll see on page 4, there's some language there added about student communication between student and the substitute. Mostly taking into account some of the new ways that teachers and students can communicate electronically. So that's really what that's highlighting there. There's also the added, under professional ethics and conduct, there's also the added, in the last bullet there, just vaping. So that goes along with what we currently have for our other policy of using tobacco products and smoking and so forth, so that there's some consistency there. And Mike, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the substitute policy has already been approved by the
Yes.
K-8.
I move we approve the proposed changes to the substitute manual as presented for first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Unanimous. Yeah. Next item, under policies for first reading is employee handbook. This is good.
Okay, just looking for any changes in this one. On page 15, the language has been added directly from the district bullying policy, which is much more detailed than MASC policy, which was last updated on 2013. And this falls under the bullying prevention piece of the policy.
I'm assuming all the information in the third section will be omitted from the final policy?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
bracketed.
Yeah.
Bracketed. Yep.
So my move that we accept the proposed change to the employee handbook with the understanding that the bracketed information on page 15 will not be included.
This is for first reading.
Yes, first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Approved for first reading. Next item.
And I'd just like to add, Dean, for the purpose of the community, is that these are all for public information, but just by way of bringing that down, the added language addresses the reporting and the process for investigating bullying incidences. So that's what that language focuses on.
Thank you, Mrs. Field. Next item under policies for first reading is Equal Education Opportunities Policy JBB.
And this is just a new policy, so.
Is it based on a model provided by MASC?
Correct, yes.
This is actually a requirement.
Yes, I'm sorry, this is a required policy.
I'll make a motion to accept the Equal Education Opportunities Policy, JBB, in first reading.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Unanimous. Next item under first reading is Homeless Students Policy JFABD. Oh, let's do that one first. Next item is actually school admissions, policy JF.
So this policy is a current policy with added language that addresses specifically homeless students and students in foster care, as recommended by the MASC.
I believe these are also state mandated requirements.
That's correct.
to accept the school admissions policy JF as amended and presented for first reading.
Second that?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Unanimous? I got ahead of myself a little earlier. The next policy is homeless students, policy JFABD.
Okay, this one, as you can see, has extensive edits and additions to the part of this. Again, these are mandated as well. Students remaining in the school of origin, there's language there. Also added students enrolling in district where shelters or temporarily residing, dispute resolution, and homeless liaison.
I move approval of the homeless students enrollment rights and services, policy JFABD, for first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Unanimous? Next policy for first reading this evening is educational opportunities for military children, policy JFABE.
And this one has changes as well. The language was recommended to us by the MASC. I believe that this one was also legally mandated as well.
I'll make a motion that we approve the first reading, the policy JFABE under educational opportunities for military children.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Unanimous? Next policy for first reading this evening is educational opportunities for children in foster care, policy JFABF.
And this also has suggested language changes based on Every Student Succeeds Act. The suggested language was proposed by MASC.
Make a motion that we approve the first reading of educational opportunities for children in foster care, number JFABF.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Unanimous? And the last policy this evening for first reading is the school visitor policy, policy KI.
This policy addresses people visiting the school and how the process is to request those visits and what time frame they can request those visits in. You'll also see that there's a school visitor observation request form attached to this. This has been reviewed by both our superintendent and the special education director, who has given their feedback and input on this policy. Yes.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the school visitor K1 policy as well as the KIBE-1 policy.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Next section of the agenda is
That was for first reading.
for first reading. Yes, correct. Yeah. next section of the agenda.
You might just check with them to see if they have any time constraints.
So we're moving on to the next section of the agenda. We are still awaiting the arrival of Superintendent Schoonover, who should be joining us shortly. I just want to make sure that no one in the audience has any time constraints.
Honestly, I did. I texted my parents.
Okay.
It's unfortunate, but they'll get the news tomorrow for the funeral. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Other matters of information, I'm going to skip ahead to, as the committee has no issue, we'll skip ahead to item number 3, which is Somerset and Berkeley K-8 updates.
Even though we just went back to school, we have a little bit to update you on. We received, the K-8 school committee received a grant for Chase Street School. This is from the Greater Fall River Development Corp., which I know you're well aware of, many of the board members. They designated a grant in the amount of $15,000 for Chromebooks for Chase Street School. And that is fantastic. So congratulations to our district for that contribution to Chase Street School. We also had a separate meeting that was not open to public, even though we had many people there visiting. We had our first workshop meeting for the budget. We had a very healthy discussion, probably for about an hour or so. Again, as we ramp into budget season, we'll be getting more information to you. But we just pretty much had a general discussion of the budget and what we should be looking for and stuff like that. Mr. Taro, could I yield to you? I know Victor's not here. Could I yield to you for the MSBA meeting we had with the Board of Selectmen and the Building Committee?
I was not present at that meeting.
Okay, I do know on December 16th, we had a meeting with the board, and we had a meeting with the building committee. We had to have a recommendation to MSBA on the 3 options we chose. I have in my head the options 2, 4, and 7. I'll try to remember this. Option 4 and 7 was a 6 to 8 brand new school for the middle school.
I apologize, I was at that meeting. I thought there was another meeting.
Okay, option 7 was a 5 to 8 total middle school, grades 5 through 8. Option 2, I need your help with. That was a 6 to 8 reno.
One of the options had to be a renovation
Okay,
option.
and that was option 2.
Yes, and then there was 2 options, either a new 5 to 8 or new 6 to 8.
Yes, which and we voted unanimous on all 3 options, all 3 committees. So the next step will be numerous community forums in February and March. So you'll be hearing more about those.
So you moved forward 3 options?
Yes, the MSBA.
One would be a brand new 5 to 8, a brand new 6 to 8, and a reno of a what grade level?
16.
16.
Yeah, 16. So, yes, so there's a lot more coming out on that. Of course, Victor's the chair of that committee, so he has a little more information than I do. But
Well, we appreciate you sharing what you...
well, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I also, if I could be so bold, I know that there was a discussion at the most recent K-8 meeting in regards to the services of the attorney that the district utilizes.
Yes, I mean, we had a little bit of discussion on that. We moved forward because there was some confusion on my part about the attorneys we use versus the region. And, you know, I believe the attorneys are used for negotiations, STA negotiations, what have you. I want to make sure we kept, this is me speaking, my opinion, you know, we kept that same attorney because he's familiar with the district, I don't know how many years. So, Mr. Taro, if you could use, the initial, what we used was a request for proposal for services? Is that what we're putting out for?
It would be a request for qualifications.
Okay. We're not binding to anything with that request? We're far from any type of a vote on you know, there's gonna be much more discussion on this, you should know. I think I aired my opinion that, you know, I was really not happy to hear that this was coming out. So you'll be hearing in the future that it, you know, I like what we have. So if I may say that, so, and I think some of my school committee members know that, so. So we'll see where it takes us, but again, we have to have a formal vote by the school committee if we made any changes at all.
Can I just say?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
and I brought that up too. I said,
you, Julie, but I read in the newspaper in advance of the K-8 school committee that this was going to be on their agenda, and I confirmed through the central office that it was in fact on the agenda. I was quite disturbed by it, and I reached out. I didn't feel it was appropriate, not being the chair of this committee, to reach out to the K-8 committee in advance of the meeting. But we have shared legal counsel in terms of collective bargaining for as long as the regional school district has been in place. And I think that the K-8 school committee, that any discussion of changing legal counsel for collective bargaining purposes should be discussed in executive session at a joint meeting. The implications of the K-8 school committee moving ahead with a change in legal counsel, absent consultation with the regional school committee, could create some very significant problems from a collective bargaining perspective. So if you could carry that message, if you actually went to the point of inviting proposals, I am, I will restrain myself and not express my viewpoint on that kind of unilateral action in view of the level of cooperation that we've had over the years in terms of sharing the legal expense. It's the cost of legal representation and collective bargaining, particularly in the last round of collective bargaining, which went for almost 18 months, was significant. And people should be viewing this from the perspective that there should be a cooperative effort here. I can't help but think when people propose a change in legal counsel that there is an agenda which wasn't expressed publicly. It may be a perfectly appropriate agenda, but an agenda nonetheless, and it is something that we should be discussing together, unless the K-8 school committee is thinking in terms of going its separate way in collective bargaining, and that has all kinds of implications.
I agree with you, Mr. Pierce, that's all I can tell you.
Thank you for the update, Mr. Gilliard.
You want the K-8?
Yes, please.
Okay. Our meeting isn't until Monday, so the one thing I want to mention on a K-8 is on January 24th at 7 p.m., January 25th at 7 p.m., and January 26th at 2 p.m. at the Berkeley Middle School, there will be a junior performance of Into the Woods, which is being directed and run by Cruz Whiting, one of our students here at the high school. So tickets are $5 for seniors and children and $8 for adults. So hopefully some of you will be able to attend. The other report I wanted to bring this evening is yesterday and today we had our DECA performances at Mansfield. On our first day, advancing to Boston, we have a total of 19 students who qualified. We had 4 who placed first in their category, 4 who placed second in their category, 4 who placed third in their category, and 3 who placed fourth, and 3 who placed fifth. That was a total of 19 out of 34 students who participated. Today, we had, on day 2, we had 34 students who qualified for Boston. So over the 2 days, we had 19 qualifiers on the first day and 34 on the second day. So Totally, we're going to have 53 students who are going to be attending Boston as qualified to go to the international, and 4 who will be doing the Quiz Bowl, which means we'll be bringing 57 students to Boston. The percentage is about the same as last year because we did have less students participating in DECA this year than we had last year. Last year we had 102 students and we qualified 77 for Boston. This year we had 80 students and we qualified 57. So the percentages are just about the same. We did have less students. And this year, for the first time, we had freshmen in the DECA program, so all 4 grades were represented. So our kids did a wonderful job, and I know we are all proud of them for what they will be doing, and I'm sure they'll be coming to make a presentation one day for everybody to see them. So we had 2 in first place today. We had, on second day, I'm sorry, we had 6 in first place, 10 in second place, 8 in third place, 9 in fourth place, and 4 in fifth place. So all in all, the students did a wonderful job, and I know we're proud of them, and we'll let them know it.
Thank you for that update.
Thank you.
So if there's no objections, we'll return to some of the items on the agenda that we have passed over. The first one I wanted to address was under Student Achievement, Teaching and Learning, MCAS Results and Strategies. So Mr. Schoonover, if you want to open that up for us.
Sure. Mr. Talbot is here, our science coordinator for the high school. This was earlier this fall when our MCAS scores were and accountability ratings were released throughout the state, and I presented that information. There were some questions of, pertaining 1 to science and 2 to just how are we addressing the academic needs of our lower performing students and how we're closing those gaps. So Mr. Talbot is here this evening to address the science aspect of that. Thank you, Mr. Talbot.
Coming on down the table is just some stuff that I put together after asking that the school committee would like some strategies. One of the things that you see when you first open this packet is the department members, and with them, what I did was I listed all the members, I listed their subjects, and I put asterisks near the teachers that are either teaching MCAS subjects, teachers that are teaching remediation courses, alternative kind of courses, as well as those that might be going in between different areas based on our staffing needs and what the students need. I also provided for you the philosophy and rationale of my science department because a very common question that comes up with our results compared to other districts is, are we making a mistake by continuously doing the introductory physics MCAS test? When you look at other schools, which I was asked to reach out to, a number of them do biology in the first year. There are some local schools that do introductory physics just like us. Historically, when you look at why we chose the science MCAS that we did, it's threefold. Way back when the science MCAS became a graduation requirement, we looked at it as, are we overwhelming our sophomore students? Is there a way that we could kind of alleviate that? And so we first started MCAS testing with biology back in the early 2000s, and the state allowed us to do a pilot program with engineering design, biology, and introductory physics. And the results we got were, biology and introductory physics results were pretty much on the same level, a little better in introductory physics. The engineering design, we didn't have great results with it, so we chose to kind of put that off to the side. So as a result, we now use introductory physics as our MCAS. 1, to take off the burden off the sophomore year for testing. 2, to allow close to 5 different times that a student could retake the test should they fail it the first time around. And the third one, of course, to kind of roll into our physics first curriculum design model that we have. So when you look at that, we do follow physics first. We offer introductory physics the first year, chemistry the second year, and now biology the third year. Some of the questions behind that, I wanted to answer it in this so you could kind of get an idea of where we're coming from. It's a process we believe in. We started it in the early 2000s, and we kind of brought it finally to fruition in the late 2000s, or 2010s. So going forward with that, we currently are testing introductory physics. If those students have failed in the past, they went on to take the introductory physics test again their sophomore year. And then when they took biology their junior year, they could take it at the end of that year. Now the state has come in and said we can test them at the half-year mark. If they're in biology, we can test them at the half year. Last year we had an unfortunate situation with our chemistry kids. Our chemistry kids, instead of being allowed to take the introductory physics test, like we've done in the past, it was decided that we were going to give them the chemistry test. The problem with doing that is the chemistry that we're teaching here was not to those standards. We're following the state standards, but the next generation standards, not the old ones. And it's important to realize that the chemistry test is what we call a legacy test. It's going to be the same test until it goes away. So as a result, going forward, kids will take the introductory physics test and then the biology test the junior year, with the option or the ability of taking it half year their junior year, as well as the end of the year should they not pass. It's also important to realize too that when we first started the Science MCAS, we gave our students the option and opportunity through guidance to opt out of the introductory physics and wait until the physics test if they wanted to. We don't really do that anymore, but it's an option that we could also look at if the kids don't feel like they're prepared for it. So as we move on in the packet, I just put in sequence of courses that we offer. That kind of goes along with the physics first. I addressed an article that was in the paper after the October school committee meeting and gave some feedback after my department met about it and kind of came together with different concerns that we identified. I then went forward with, and you guys can read that, I'm not going to put that out there, but you guys can read it at your own leisure. We're looking at following with other schools in our area, which Mr. Schoonover asked me to do. I reached out to the schools in the SEC. And even though we didn't get all responses back, one of the main ones that we wanted to see was Case. I wanted to see Bristol Plymouth. I wanted to see Apponequet. So some of those did get back to us. And what I did was I showed you the questions that I put out to all of those principals or the science department heads, contact coordinators, asking them for some viable feedback. Again, you saw the majority of grade 9 introductory physics, grade 9 biology, and grade 10 biology, being tested. If you notice here, our main one, again, grade 9 introductory physics, and that's what we are planning to stay with at this point. When we ask what they do during the school day, you're going to see much similarities with what we already do. One of the things that we've tried to do in the past is when science teachers under the old schedule didn't have a full 30 period schedule, what I tried to implement was science review periods. And what those science review periods would be is to allow the kids to be placed with the teacher and basically remediated and go over the material for the MCAS exams in preparation of that test. Unfortunately, with scheduling issues, a lot of times, even though I scheduled them in the summertime, by the September or whatever, those teachers were pulled for duties. Fast forward to this year with the new schedule, we unfortunately lost some time with overall science time, but what we're doing to kind of remedy that is we have teachers dedicated for remediation and review in the Blue Radar blocks. So as we get closer to the the spring test for the introductory physics, you'll have more of my physics teachers hitting the people that are at low risk or the students that are low risk, low learning abilities. We're also trying to get more in contact with the, the special ed teachers that have students that are actually taking the, the biology MCAS or the introductory physics MCAS, whatever they decide to do. This is one of those problems that we need to have a better line of communication. I've questioned the past two education coordinators or special ed education coordinators to their curriculum, like, how are you teaching science at your level? Because if you remember a couple of years ago, when we had a drop in the levels between level 3 and level 2 or what have you, one of the things, and we kind of, we asked the state to relook at it. The problem became that there was some low-level learners that had issues with that. So that's one of our main concerns as well, is how can we help those students that are taking the actual test and kind of work with them for that. So we'd like to do that. So you would see some similarities between ORR, you see some similarities between Bristol Plymouth, and you still see some similarities between DR as well as CASE. On the next one, or the next category that we see here.
I'm sorry, Matt.
Yep.
What similarities?
We have similarities between those schools. So like some feedback that I got from the school committee is people wanted me to talk to like CASE because they had really good scores. So that was one of the schools that I kind of asked, what they were doing in regard to, their good scores. So we do have similarities with a lot of the schools around us, especially in the SEC. One thing I want to address too is coming up in February, we'll have our biology retest. We have 3 students currently going to take the biology retest. Those students are either ones that have failed in the past, or we have 2, I believe it is, from other schools. One coming from Florida, so they've never taken the MCAS before. So during the Blue Raider block, during the day, and then they'll also have after-school boot camps, which you'll see throughout this document as possible ways of, bettering our scores, which we already do with the help of Ms. Haskell. We'll be offering the biology retest, after school help.
Can I just ask for clarification? So the students here all have the opportunity to take or are asked to take the MCAS physics test as a freshman, right?
In our core courses, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And then you said that there are opportunities to retake that test, and that's one of the reasons why you kept it physics first, right? So when you say a biology MCAS test, is
Yep.
that one of the science retests they can take, or
Yep.
do they take?
No, so what happens right now with the state is you had engineering design,
Yep.
you had biology, you had introductory physics, and you had chemistry as MCAS tests.
All
To-
qualifying as science?
All qualifying in science.
Yep.
We didn't have luck with the engineering design way back when, so we scrapped that. The state is kind of scrapping engineering design and chemistry, and they're left as legacy. In other words, it was supposed to stop this year, but as decisions were made, it's still out there in the horizon. So that's why some of our kids will probably take it at the end of the year. So as a result, we were really focusing on introductory physics as well as biology. Introductory physics right now does not have a retest, only the biology has a
I
retest.
see.
We're hoping next year the state is going to roll that out, because one of the organizations I work with, which I address in here, MSELA, Mass Science Leadership Network, that was one of the things that we brought forward as feedback, is we'd like to see this kind of retest. So that's why it's only biology retest that I'm talking about right now.
Okay.
But as long as the student has taken a year of introductory physics and say they failed it, the next spring, they are entitled to take it, to take the introductory physics again.
A class again?
No,
The test
well,
again.
if they failed it, we've allowed them to retake the test.
Okay.
But a lot of them, if they've passed the class, they go on to the next sequence of
I see.
classes.
Okay.
So as a result, and that's what we thought was gonna happen last year, and, different decisions were made beyond my control. So those kids that may have failed the chemistry test will now take I was hoping they would take the half-year biology test. That's not necessarily the case. They'll be taking the biology test at the end of the year. And just so you know, we do have, again, through Ms. Haskell's help, we have after school for introductory physics, and that was one of the benefits, because some of the kids, even though they might not have participated in the after school help the first year around, a lot of times they're like, all right, I need to get this test done, I need to graduate, you know, so they tended to be more into taking the help after school. We've had some really good success with our after-school program with the introductory physics. The problem is, it's not mandatory, unfortunately. And, you know, even though we send out the letter, we appeal to the parents, we let them know that it's a graduation requirement, you know, even we've asked in the past, like, please have the attendance mandatory with this, come to the program. You don't always have full buy-in from home. And it's unfortunate because the teacher that does it, very dedicated. You know, we used to do it weekdays after school. You know, on Saturdays, you'll see the biology retest. There's going to be a couple of Saturdays. Just try to accommodate people's schedules. You know, a common problem we get, believe it or not, is I don't really want my kid to go because they have after-school activities. It's like, all right, but our test is like, you know, graduation requirement. So,
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Isn't that what the rate of box schedule is for too, to help out? Is there something in the rate of box schedule that's physics related where they can?
yep, so again, so before the biology retest, I'm going to have some kids automatically come into me for tutoring for the biology retest. And then as we get closer to the date, they'll be put or automatically scheduled for the Blue Radar for physics, as well as often the after school. Problem with the Blue Radar block during the day is students have a right to choose what they want, or some kids that are looking for tutoring in other subjects, you know, we're up against that. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how our numbers kind of fluctuate with now that we have a built-in, you know, tutoring time during the school day.
Can I just ask, you said something occurred that was beyond your control. Was that at the state level, or was that within, and I'm not asking for the details, but was that an administrative decision within the school district that you were referring to?
It was a choice made by an individual that thought they were doing the right thing at the right time, even though I told her that of the different options that we've done in the past. It was her first year in the district, tests were already ordered, and from
So
what I
it was
understood.
an internal issue?
Yeah. As far as best practices and strategies for students, you know, you see commonalities between these, between the schools that we've talked to, as well as what's going on here. And the same thing is happening with the DESE learning networks and the MCLEB learning networks. You know, a lot of our schools, we're moving towards using the same language that the new MCAS is kind of infusing. The new MCAS is no longer just a multiple choice and open-ended response. It's now going to be more of problem solving. All right, so as a result, you know, we have to change our ways with that. And if you look in the back, you know, which is really what you guys, I think, are looking for from me, you see the different ideas of, you know, how we're addressing the low scores, but also kind of moving towards the next generation MCAS, you know, kind of testing. So what you see here is, again, what the other schools gave to us, and, you know, what we are also currently employing. You know, we do the after-school boot camps, we've done the weekend boot camps, tried to make attendance necessary. Ms. Haskell opened up the initiatives last year for me for, you know, kids with perfect attendance that came to the after-school programs could take part in the same kind of initiatives or incentives, I should say, that the math students do. So we did have some luck with that last year. And moving forward, they still have the same incentive. But again, when you look at what we're doing compared to the other schools, it's a lot of reiteration, and you know, there is some redundancy with what we are doing. One of the things that we're looking for next year and that we try to put in our budget is test banks that are going to be common with the same kind of language and different style of questioning that we can infuse into our common assessments as well as our unit exams. So we're looking into that. And then my physics teachers or introductory physics teachers, we have 3 full ones, and then we have one of our chemistry teachers teaching a section. And then another physics teacher is teaching an additional section. What they're doing is infusing practice questions that the state put out, as well as last year's release ones, and putting that into their assessments as well as their mid-year exams. So the kids are seeing the new language and the new style of testing. So we're going forward with that, as well as bringing the same kind of labs that you'll see as examples being used inside the tests into the curriculum.
Now, if I could ask a question, are you evaluating the base level knowledge that these students are coming into from the lower grades when it comes to science? And I know specifically they're not learning physics in the middle school, but there obviously needs to be some basic level of, computation and understanding. Is there an ability for you to get a sense of what those grades are, what the kids are coming in with, the tools that they have to be able to
We've actually talked about that, about doing like a pretest or a pretest assessment. Like for years, math has done.
Yeah.
Math was prior to Ms. Haskell coming on. Dr. Smith was able to do vertical alignment teams with the middle school. And what that did was it allowed a lot of the math teachers from the high school to go down to the middle school and have a nice true vertical alignment meeting with common goals and so on. We tried to do similar things here. Even at our last A camp, we tried to have teachers come in for a vertical alignment meeting. It was the high school teachers and Berkeley middle school teachers. With the Sunset Middle School teachers had other things they wanted to look at. Nikki Mello came in, the coordinator down there. When you look at scores, one of the questions that comes about is, when you look at 2010, when I was hired from being a classroom teacher into being a content coordinator, that was the year that they split the job in half. Prior to that, Mary Clement, who I replaced, she came on board from Durfee from K through 12, and then she was 6 or 12 when one of the former superintendents wanted a middle school coordinator. And you have to kind of think about or wonder about what kind of damage did that do to the scores? What kind of damage does science being taught as more of a special prior to, and I applaud whoever did it, and I think two of them are over there on the other side, the whole idea of departmentalization at the elementary level, where you now have a dedicated science teacher, where prior to that you had the dinosaur models. Hey, I like dinosaurs, I'm going to teach dinosaurs. So now we have a lot more teaching of science down at the elementary level, and we're hoping as that comes up that it's going to be much better. I'd still love to see a better vertical alignment plan. I'd love to see more. Berkeley is fabulous when it comes to like ideas. Kim Hebert is always willing to send her teachers over. Her 8th grade science teacher, when he comes over for Shadow Day, comes into our classroom, see how we are teaching our curriculum, what resources we are using, and things that we'd like to see in our classroom. I'd love to see that because from a teaching perspective, you don't always know exactly what the kids are coming with. So talking to Mr. Lawrence, that was one of the things too that we could now start doing is, all right, how can we gauge properly where these kids should be? Or, what are they coming in that they're a little weak in? And then that's great as long as we have the backing of from the administration when we put kids in certain classes and we're our hands are tied when parents disagree with it. And, the professional opinion of teachers is not always being respected, and you see that a lot of times. I have a kid that a student prior to coming up here was in a subset classroom. They decided we want full, mainstream, which is great, but unfortunately the student is very inept with their skills, and even when the teacher tries to bring them to the academic support on Mondays for science, the student isn't always willing to go. And we don't always have the support from home or even the leveling choices. So that's one of the things that we kind of struggle with as well, which, there's other ways around it, but, that was one of the things that I put in there as something that we'd love to see is more backing and, firmer understanding of, hey, this is why we're putting your student here instead of here kind of thing.
Is there an assessment in place that can be used to kind of look at how students are coming into the district as freshmen?
So one of the things I put out with the MSL group is you have like the STAR reading programs at ELA, you have math testing for math, but it's a lot of times you go off Andy's data or Mr. Lawrence's data. A lot of times we'll pick from Title I to identify, students in need. The last time we did the appeal to the state, we started gathering names of students that could be put into a a remediation class right away. Unfortunately, we just didn't have the staff for it. We've lost a couple staff, so we weren't able to do like a math applications kind of class, or some of the reading or English classes that are dedicated to kind of improving work. So we're working around that, and we still, I don't want to place blame. We need to look at ourselves and say, all right, what can we do better? In that couple of last pages of the document, you see, like, I want to send more of my teachers to the social emotional learning conference in the fall to kind of get an idea of, like, all right, what is different strategies we can employ to reach those lower level learners. We have a group home that feeds into us that, some of my teachers just don't really know how to always teach that kid. I have challenges too, and I usually handle those populations. When we lost 2 teaching positions from my physics section, I had to bring down, some teachers that taught the advanced physics, down into freshmen. And it's not always, well, you're certified for physics, you should be able to teach physics. Well, sometimes you have to relearn how to ride the bike. And, if you haven't dealt with that population and, you're used to teaching it, at a certain level, all right, now I have to relearn how to make sure I'm talking their language and getting the message across. And that's, potentially one of the problems that we're facing. But, I have a great staff, great faculty. They're open to, is the academy telling me I need to stop? Sorry to pull out a Ricky Gervais. But, no, in all seriousness, we have a great staff. We were lucky enough to get a new teacher. That's done a wonderful job, but I also have some veteran teachers that have done a great job and great work with these students, and we're going to keep plugging along. And I realize that might not necessarily be everything that you want to hear, but when you look at what these other schools are doing and the success rates that they are having, you see that the same strategies that we employ here are, similar to what they provided for me. So I kind of responded to some of the questions in this presentation that I was asked of school committee members. I left the messages there for you. If you, I've offered it in the past when, we've gotten kind of like written up in the newspaper about poor results and so on. I welcome any school committee member to come to a department meeting, come see what we're doing in our classroom. We're perfectly fine with that. I know there's different restrictions or processes that you have to do, but just know that any one of you guys are always welcome in the science department to see what we're doing. The last 2 pages is the plan for improvement with curriculum development, professional development, data analysis, intervention, strategies, and test prep. One of the things that, given the charge of bringing strategies that we're employing here in my science department, when we look at the data that comes from the state, we're looking at content deficiencies for the most part. You can easily do a scan for the teachers will label whose students are whose, and it's kind of like Christmas morning, you want to see your presents, well, the teachers want to see how their students did. So from a content coordinator perspective, I'm not looking at what teacher, had the most wins or losses. I'm looking overall, like, all right, what do we need to do to correct some of these deficiencies that we have? Waves and electric and magnetism tended to be a problem for us. So one of the things that we did is we changed the way that, and the amount of material and the amount of time that's being spent with it. Better models. This is one of the places where we brought in, when the state changed different examples, we brought those into our curriculum. When we do have opportunities like on professional development days, when we have time that the teachers can sit down and look at the results or make differences, that's what they're doing. It's one of those things, unfortunately, this year, common planning time, we weren't able to put all those teachers together. So a lot of them are working, on their own island kind of thing with the MCAS analysis. Going forward with the schedule, I'm sure next year we'll be back to the way it was, but that's one of our weaknesses this year. I'm kind of worried with the new MCAS test that we're going to roll out this year, in the sense that it's going to be electronic. One of our teachers did one of the pilot programs where they could take the test, and some of the feedback that they gave us was you're not always able to go back to to a question. So once you've answered the question, you now move on. Where in the old way, you had an opportunity of going back from page to page, until it said the stop thing in the corner. But what's interesting with that is one of the ways that we're training the kids is using more quizzes, which is an electronic quiz program that does the same thing that, hey, answer it now and move on kind of thing. And at least there, they get into practice and kind of like that idea of, all right, I need to keep moving on. So I'm a little nervous with that. I'm looking forward to, like I said, with the departmentalization at the elementary level, I'm looking forward to having more, strength in oh my God. Now God's punished me, I don't know. I'm really hoping for more, better results in the future. And if not, we're just gonna have to keep looking at, all right, what do we do wrong now? As far as the analysis, we always compare ourselves to the state, areas of greatest weakness. We tend not to do so much between like a true data evaluation between the middle school students or students that came from other towns. It's homogenized, and we look more at how the things that we can improve. How are we going to improve it? So those are my strategies for this. And then on the last page, you see kind of more of working together with Dr. Doucette and Mr. Lawrence about how we can kind of bring in the open-ended response questions more so into the writing areas or even math problems that the student's going to see or physics problems that the kids are going to see. How can we kind of infuse those into maybe the math applications classes or the other freshman sciences?
So when you read this last page, it's a plan that the faculty have developed collectively to kind of address these issues. So you've kind of figured out what the professional development activity should be in these realms, who's going to handle it, when it's going to happen, and how you're going to follow up on whether it's being implemented.
And it's important with this that this is coming from the science department first,
Okay.
with some talk. So, Jeanine Wood, who just stepped in, she has to be brought up on this, but, like with that, the co-taught classes that we have, we want to try with the idea of strengthening the science content knowledge, for our freshman co-taught science classes, and make sure that the sped teacher that's in the room that's co-teaching also knows how to do the math, how to properly teach and, assess and make improvements with the students as well. So when we first started our physics design, one of the things that we did is we had a graduate course for interested science teachers, sped teachers, math teachers, and Paris, believe it or not. And we brought in a professor from Bridgewater, and it was co-taught by two of the physics teachers at the time. And basically gave us all the overview of, all right, these are the subjects, these are the topics, how do you teach it, the math involved and so on. And it was more of a primer course. So that's what we're looking at right now for our improvements.
Mr. Talbot, I just want to open by saying thank you so much for the thought and reflection that you put into this document. There's certainly an awful lot to digest here, and it does appear that you've taken all the different questions and comments that have been made to heart and tried to answer as thoroughly as humanly possible all the concerns the committee has articulated in one form or another. So I thank you so much for that. You did indicate that one of the items that your department would be looking for in this year's budget was test banks.
Yes.
Are there any other resources that you can think of? Because certainly the committee is committed to doing what it can to help you improve the scores in your department. And if there's anything that we can address or take a look at.
I definitely want to keep in mind, when I first took over this department, and I know I sound like a broken record, I was 15 people in my department. I've lost 3 people along the way. And granted, some of them, went on to be a scheduler, when I stepped back from that role, or they were planetarium, or what have you. I'm looking for, as you guys make your, or as the committee makes decisions when it comes to finances, if you're gonna cut staffing from a department or staff members, make sure that those staff cuts are legitimate and you have a clear articulation as to why you're allowing for the cutting of a teacher in one, in one side of the mouth, but then you question why there's such, failures on the other. Like, hey, we're taking this from you, but we still expect you to do all this, so good luck. And I realize that's how it is across business, other schools and so on, but, with the concern that's being had about the test scores, why would you go and cut positions? And forcing lower level learners into very high numbered classes. It just doesn't make sense. So resource-wise, I'd love test banks. I'd love, I'm talking with Ken Sutcliffe from Bristol Plymouth. He's the curriculum director there. And I really like some of his ideas that he's been doing. A little jaded because he used to be one of our English teachers before he was tempted up there. But really great guy, science background, even though he's an English teacher. And looking at some of the things that they're doing, you'll probably see some requests for more Pearson materials from us for test prep. So.
And I noticed that you have a fairly thorough professional development plan that runs through the end of this year.
So some of that stuff, if you notice the dates, it's 2010 to 2020. I wanted to cover the dates I'm in this role. I'm not saying I'm leaving in 2020, but this is what we've either done or what we're looking to do. Okay. And not solidified for, it's not a 10-year plan. This is what we'd like to do or look to do.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Talbot?
Well, I'd just like to say I appreciate the effort that went into the document that you provided. I'm not going to attempt to look at it carefully during the course of the meeting. I'm going to take as much time as I feel I need to understand everything. There may be some additional information. For example, I'd like to know what the class size is in each of the freshman physics classes. That's just something that popped into my head as you were speaking in terms of staffing. As I expressed previously, I see my name in a headline here in the information, and I've been talking about this. You've been the content coordinator as long as I've been on this committee, and I remember the first time you presented to the committee, I raised concerns about the science MCAS scores. That was at least 10 years ago, I believe. And one thing you mentioned, which kind of concerns me, is you said we're doing a lot of the same things that they're doing in surrounding school districts, and yet the surrounding school districts are achieving higher scores. I just did preparation for tonight's meeting, and I didn't have a lot of time because I didn't realize this was going to be on the agenda tonight until very recently. But I looked at
my strategies.
Pardon me?
The strategies.
The strategies.
Like me coming to the meeting tonight.
Yes, I didn't know you were coming tonight. I knew we had originally scheduled, and then it was rescheduled and rescheduled.
I kept getting bumped. I was getting a little concerned. You see me, Mr. Pierce.
No. One was the. It wasn't our fault. One was the.
Two was the field hockey.
One was the field hockey championship, and I don't know what the second one was. But I'm not suggesting that you were trying to avoid us or anything, or that we were trying to push you off. That's not the case. But I looked at these scores, and our scores are the lowest of every high school that I looked at. Old Rochester, Freetown Lakeville, some of them actually surprised me. Westport, Swansea, Dighton Rehoboth, Seekonk, every one of those schools, and Bristol Aggie, which again, I said to myself, well, I'm getting a lot of trouble with Bristol Aggie here, but
Then don't do it.
Don't?
I think their score was 82.
Well, don't forget, I mean, the vocational technical high schools are now magnet schools. You know, we can call them technical schools, but they're magnet schools. They're pulling a lot of our really good quality kids into, I can now go to a high school, I can go to a 4-year high school, learn a shop, learn a trade, and then go to college. So, you know, as you're saying that, as that's coming out of your mouth, I understand where you're coming from, but it's also one of the reasons why maybe our pool is not so high all the time.
Well, Bristol Aggie may be an exception because I'm not all that familiar with their curriculum, and I know that they're focusing to some extent on science. But they tend to have less time in academic subjects than in a comprehensive high school. That's my impression. Now, it may be incorrect, but that was my impression. But anyway, I don't want to belabor this. I think it's very important that we come up with a plan, because from my perspective, and we just in the very broad sense, you know, the jobs of the future. Many of the jobs of the future don't exist now, and they're going to be focused in technology and science, and our kids have to be prepared in those areas. Some will not have the aptitude, and I understand that, and you can't tell them what their career choice is going to be, but you can advise them that those are where the job opportunities in large part are going to be in the future. And we need to provide them with the strongest curriculum that we possibly can. And I know this is a challenging task. We have all kinds of, and I also understand that there's a philosophy that you can't teach to the test. And I certainly understand the pros and cons of that argument, but I just look at us relatively speaking, and I say I'm not satisfied when we're at the bottom within the region. And so I think we really have to work to try to figure this out.
And I do, again, I want to reiterate that I appreciate the effort that went into this document and the different suggestions that you have here. As you know, the budget process is beginning. So if there's anything in addition that you or your department members can think of that would be advantageous to have in order to try to put a focus on science MCAS scores, and quite honestly, we're here to try to assist whenever possible as we work our way through the budget process. It's helpful for us to know what areas in which we can take a look to try to provide additional resources that can produce the type of outcomes we're looking for.
Sure.
So any feedback you might be able to provide would be most appreciated. And thank you for giving us such a big piece of your Thursday night.
No problem. I'll just put in a shameless plug. You'll be coming down the pipeline with the Project Lead the Way classes. And, as Mr. Pierce was talking about, the careers of the future. Well, if you notice in our rationale and our philosophy, we're definitely putting that forward. When you look at the test results, yes, I understand we might be the lowest of the low, but when you look at our graduation numbers, somewhere along the way, even the kids that are having the toughest amount of time passing that MCAS has passed. And one of my most favorite story that I have to say, when I hear, or like every October I know I'm gonna get slammed in the paper, my department might be slammed in the paper because of our poor scores. But I always have the success stories of those kids, and one of them, he had huge temper problems. He was very aggressive. He used to get kicked out of classes all the time. He failed the MCAS, and we drilled him and worked with him, not to put it out there, but unpaid, because we wanted this kid to pass, and it was Janine Wood and myself, and that kid passed. And the only way I heard about it was through another teacher. She was a special ed teacher that was getting her hair done, and the mother was singing our praise. And to me, I realize you guys are the numbers people and you're looking for that, and I don't want it to appear that we don't care about numbers in my department, because we most certainly do. But it's those little success stories too, and anecdotes that you have to remember along the way, that some of the hardest kids that just don't want to learn, they have so many other things going on, we're still getting them to pass the MCAS, maybe if not on the first time, the second time, but definitely we will we agree with you, we need to do better, and, you know, hopefully in subsequent years, we're gonna be able to make you happy. And, you know, hey, look at us, you know, like, tell Mr. Rossi we're doing a good job, finally, you know, because we need it sometimes.
Well,
So I definitely think if you got comments, because it's really, it makes me feel good. And thank you so much for tonight, because I'll tell you, I've been a nervous wreck since October when I first read the article. And, you know, you get one of my teachers in tears, because she's like, I work so hard, they don't understand. I feel like they just don't care about us, that there's so much negativity all the time. And, you know, like, I'm like, well, I have to go in front of them now and talk about, like, how we're gonna fix this. So can you kind of focus on this, you know? And so I had to hear them out. But, you know, we came together, we talked about certain things, you know, in evaluations, like, hey, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that. You know, so we are working tirelessly for you.
And we appreciate that. Make sure the members of your department know that we are appreciative of all the efforts they're making on behalf of our district and our students.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
You know, and one thing, I'll just piggyback on that, and I often feel somewhat hypocritical. I have these differing thoughts that are constantly going through my head, and the accountability in MCAS, we absolutely want to have the highest scores we can possibly achieve. But there are so many wonderful things that are happening in all of our classes that aren't tested. The level of skills that our teachers, the deep level of thinking and those application skills that I see each and every day, no matter what department we're in, those are the skills that our teachers are intently focusing on. Those aren't measured by a test, but those are the skills that are preparing our students for college and what comes after college. So those are not measured, but they are the focus of what we do, and I do believe very strongly that our students are better prepared for college than some of those schools that we're comparing ourselves to, because they may beat us right now in MCAS in some levels, but I believe we do far surpass them in many other areas that are more meaningful to them beyond grade 12. So, you know, but it's one of those things where I realize this is how school districts are measured, and we have to try our best to improve these scores, but there are some other measures that just aren't showing up on paper in this way.
And the difficult part is you don't want to lose that engagement in the classroom. You don't want to sacrifice that engagement in the classroom in your efforts to just teach to the test.
Right.
So, but that's the tricky part that the district has to kind of wrestle with. But there are some good things happening in the classroom that you don't want to lose.
Yep.
I actually would also like to say, I know Matt called it a shameless plug, but the truth of the matter is we are in budget season and we are an Innovation Pathways designee. I was actually at a college and career advising workshop today, and we are working really hard to put that in place, and we will need your continued support. The Project Lead the Way piece is a huge part of it. But at the end of the day, as important as MCAS is, we are preparing our kids for the real world, and we are confident that our Innovation Pathways work will continue to move kids to that ready place. And that is at the vision of our graduate is for kids to be able to be contributing, hardworking, thoughtful, critical thinking, productive members of our global world. And we are confident that we're doing the right things by them. And our teachers work hard in that regard. So,
Thank you.
Shameless plug 2.0, huh?
absolutely.
Any other comments or questions on this topic?
Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Michelle. Next item on the agenda, under new business, superintendent's presentation of evidence for evaluation. Mr. Schoonover?
Thank you, Mr. Larrabee. So I know Robin has provided you with a few documents, one being the list of the 5 goals that we established this past spring for me. The other, the rubric with the identified indicators, and once we get into the rubric, I've included only those areas I believe that you need to focus on, yes. So that way, the ones that are not highlighted in yellow on one of those first pages, those are no longer in there. So what remains is everything that that you're going to be using. And then the third document, and I think maybe Mr. McDonald, this may be is this your first time using this instrument? Okay. So the one that says end of cycle summative evaluation report, superintendent. The rest of you are familiar with this. On the first page, it's really these 2 steps. One is addressing the professional practice, student learning, and district improvement goals, and identifying whether I did not meet, I made some progress, significant progress, met or exceeded. And then step 2 is the 4 standards, and then the 4 rating categories there: unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, or exemplary. And there's some additional information behind that regarding each of those 4 standards and 5 goals. So that's just, as you know, sort of the logistics of this. And those documents I did include in the digital binder. I know, I apologize, it just went out today, but just as with Mr. Talbot's document, I'll just sort of go over it, try to do it quickly here, and then you can review the materials. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And if you need a printout of this, I'm sure we can provide one for you. So anyway, the way I've established this in this binder, I have a tab for each one of the 5 goals and another for each one of the 4 standards. I've included a self-reflection and a summary for each one of those. I've included, there are some sub-tabs at the top underneath the main section that if you click on those, you'll find some evidence that will support some of the things that I'm saying, the things that I've done, and that's true for each of those 9. So just quickly, my professional practice goal this year is on meeting leadership. And as I described last spring when we were doing this, setting these goals, this was an area that I definitely was not happy with my own performance last year. It's an easy one to let slide. I always feel badly about bringing, and when we have a district leadership meeting, it's those of us in central office, the directors, but then principals from each of the 5 buildings. We meet as the 2 districts, and assistant principals if they are available to attend. It's always difficult I feel badly pulling principals from their buildings because I want them with their students, particularly, again, it's a district thing, so on the elementary side, I have 2 principals who do not have an assistant principal. So it's always a struggle and trying to find that balance. But then when we do meet, I want that time to be meaningful. So that's really what I wanted to do this past year, and really spending less time on a material that could be handled through emails and just more of that basic administrative tasks, but getting into looking at the data that we receive, that we have, what data we might need that we might not have at our fingertips, analyzing that and trying to brainstorm to constantly improve. So I have included, really just from this fall, I've given you 4 different agendas, one from October, November, December, and the one that took place in late August, just to show you some of what the typical meetings look like. We've conducted activities ranging from identifying some focus indicators back in August, and this was also with our content coordinators the day we did that. Really we have all of these indicators in the educator evaluation system, and it's something I tried to do a few years ago, and we kind of put the brakes on it. Not many people were ready to go there, but this past year, they were ready to not look at all of the, put the same emphasis on all of the standards, just like you've done with my evaluation. We're not looking at every single one, and I don't think it's fair for teachers to look at every single indicator that's there. So we identified, I think it was 8 of the ones that we consider high leverage. What's going to be the biggest bang for the buck? And this is what we want to focus on. Whether it's, we know research-based, these are the best, or based on our evidence of observations, these are the areas that we need to work on. Anyway, we identified those, and we went through some strategies. We, together as a group of 25 or so of us, we viewed a classroom lesson, a video lesson, calibrated ourselves, discussed what we saw, just trying to make sure that we are consistent with what we do as administrators when we're in classrooms. So anyway, I've given you some examples of that, some, and if you have any questions again, please let me know. The second goal, the next 3 goals are the student learning goals. The first one, innovation pathways. We've said so much about it, you know so much. Really, that goal was very simple this past spring. We just want to seek approval to get some innovation pathways designated for Somerset Berkeley. I've said this before, many districts went out and tried to get 1. We tried to get 3. We were designated for all 3. I have the letter from Commissioner Riley there, and just a summary and reflection, and really what the next steps are. But and I really do have to thank the person to my left here. She was instrumental in putting a lot of this work together and completing the grants. Every time we submitted a grant application, Desi came back with, okay, well, here's the next step. And then here's the next step. And it just seems like every time one was submitted, they wanted more information.
If I may just take a second.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover, you indicated that was simple. I don't think it was simple.
Well,
even remotely
well.
close. And since this is an evaluation, I would take,
simple,
I would take full
simple
credit
in the
for
fact that there was little information here. It was, we got it. Move on. You can just say, I met the goal, and,
yes,
and
I think that the enormity of that goal cannot be understated, and the fact that that it was achieved shouldn't be understated.
No, it's I'm very proud of the work that has already taken place by a number of people, and it started with Liz and me, but we have a team of people here at the high school who are working on this. And we're doing it together, and we keep expanding that group. It's not simple, and it's really exciting. Yes. But
so don't use the word simple on the paper, George.
Complex
I
is
think that's a
good.
good point. That designation is it's meant to transform the education that happens in this building, and for this district to attempt to do that, not in one area, but with 3 different pathways, I think is a big deal. I mean,
Yes.
I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of school districts who have looked at the same type of process, and so I have a pretty good understanding of the extent that goes into it.
It's a Herculean accomplishment.
Yeah.
Not simple.
just the fact that it's yes or no. We got it. That's what I meant by simple. All right. The second student learning goal is on creating dual enrollment options for students. And I described some of this. We used to have language in our student handbook. And for whatever reason, that disappeared a few years ago. So in order to bring this back, that was really the first step. We needed some language that allows, whether it was in the student handbook or through school committee policy, but we needed something to allow students, or some procedures to allow students to have these opportunities. I have in here the handbook change that was approved by first the school council, then by the school committee. That was the language that I had created and given to that school council for their review. Unfortunately, by the time all of that happened, the window of opportunity for the 1920 school year had already opened and closed. So we're going to be looking to share information with students for the 2021 school year. So I have I've made contacts and I've met with people from BCC, UMass Dartmouth, and Bridgewater State. I have some of that information that's in here for your review. just to show, that we are taking steps here, and guidance will have this information. And during this, the upcoming course enrollment and approval process, we'll make sure that students know about these opportunities, and, if they want to try taking a class at one of these institutes of higher ed, then they can, and they will be able to get credit here at Somerset Berkeley, which was not part of the original plan. If students took courses earlier, they were not receiving credit. Even though they had a college transcript, they were not getting any credit here at the high school. But that is a change that we have now. The third goal was addressing the academic and social emotional needs of students. And this is one of those monster goals that I wasn't expecting to be completed this year. This is absolutely going to continue into and throughout 2020. I don't even really ever see the way things happen in both school districts. It seems like it's just an ever-growing problem, and not something, it's an ongoing concern, and it's something that will be continuously addressed. In here, I have a summary. I've given you some information just about our district curriculum accommodation plan that we review and update each year, which talks about how we're going to address both the academic and social needs of students. It's really a document for Somerset and Somerset Berkeley, but it provides some guidance to the schools as to what steps need to be followed in order to making sure that we are addressing those needs. And as Mr. Talbot was describing earlier with the Blue Raider block, that is certainly a new feature here at the high school in a way in which he was describing. We're able now to identify students who are struggling academically, and we can reach out to them and provide them this time every single week. We have an 80-minute block of time every Thursday to help students give them some assistance in areas where they really need it. So for many of our students, they're choosing where they want to go, what they want to take, but we can also be a little bit more targeted in how we use that time to address those academic needs. Let's see.
Mr. Schoonover,
Yes.
before we move on to the next goal, specifically in this area, you had indicated that this is the type of goal that's going to be achievable over a period of years and not necessarily something that's achievable in a single school year or even two.
Mm-hmm.
Are you confident that things are moving in the right direction
Well,
and that people are on board? And because this is certainly a goal that is larger than just the superintendent's office.
Right.
It's a goal that stretches across the entire faculty.
So the way that we do my evaluation over a calendar year, so obviously it's now spreads over 2 school years. In the 18-19 school year, we did, as you know, we had a change in our guidance office. We changed the structure of it. We had 3 guidance counselors and a lead guidance counselor. We changed that lead guidance counselor position to one that's now a director of social emotional learning and learner supports. Some long title, but we have a person who does not have that guidance load that the lead guidance counselor used to have, but is able to work on a broader range of topics that are all supporting student needs, academic and social emotional learning. This year we have, for the first time, a full-time school psychologist on board. So it was a position that we attempted to fill in the 18-19 school year, but were unsuccessful. And for the first time, we have that full-time psych here. And that has been very meaningful to just helping the 2 adjustment counselors that we have on staff, but also being able to address needs from students when they arise very, very quickly. We can respond very quickly. So yes, Mr. Larrabee, I think we're making a lot of progress there, but we do need to formulate an SEL team in a way and develop just really an SEL plan. Whether or not it's is going to be a strand of our strategic plan that is soon developed, or if it's a standalone. But just really to try to think 3 to 5 years ahead, and rather than reacting to things as they happen. But most schools and most districts in this area right now tend to be more reactive, just because and then the reason why I'm late tonight, I was at one of the other schools dealing with issues that you can describe as social emotional learning, and it's hard to keep up with some of the struggles that students are bringing to school. All right, let me see. The fifth goal is on district improvement. This is really addressing school culture and climate is something that we've talked about. We really started talking about this over the summer. This is another one that, and this is connected with the strategic plan. Obviously, as you know, most of the strategic planning work is really beginning to take place this month. We've done some work here, but this is another one that I would self-assess as some progress has been made, because we have made some, but I clearly have not met the goal. But this is something that I knew would carry over from one year into the next, because the strategic planning process does take a significant amount of time. But as you know, and maybe this ties into, I think this ties into another item on the agenda, later on this month, we will have that strategic planning event with 50 to 60 individuals, stakeholders from the community. Surveys are going to be going out to families, students, and staff. And I have in this, under this tab, I've included the draft surveys as they stand right now. Those will be adjusted, but just so you have an idea of what types of questions we're going to be asking our students. And we want to try to ask, particularly students and families, the same sorts of questions so that we can compare parent results to the student results. And as you know as well, we have a professional read with our leadership team. It's called School Culture Rewired. So that is something else that will be taking place throughout this school year, making sure that all of our district and building leaders have a shared understanding of school culture and climate, shared definitions, and strategies to help move forward. All right, so then we have our 4 standards. Standard 1 is instructional leadership, and then there's a lot of overlap. And as you know, the indicators have been mostly developed because they connect to those goals. And there may be some other additional information or documentation that I have included specifically under the 4 standards that necessarily aren't there for the 5 goals. But under instructional leadership, I have just some of the things, ways that I've engaged with administrators and faculty this past year, resources that have been provided in the areas of instruction, evaluation, and data-informed decision-making. For Standard 2, management and operations, the areas that were identified here were environment and human resources management and development. Under environment, it's I focused on some of the improvements and ways that we've addressed school safety with updates in the crisis manual. I've included that for your reference. I wrote the grant to the state for the school Safer Schools and Communities grant, in which we received in August in the amount of $60,000. That work has been completed, and I will I'll update the committee. That work was really just recently completed in late December, so I will give the committee an update on that. But that was something else that, in talking about the environment, is more the physical environment, but ways that we're improving it. There's just some other things. I need to bore you with every detail. For human resources management and development, one of the areas there are several examples here, but one that is relatively new, it's a way of recruiting teachers. There's an app called Handshake. It's a relatively, as far as I know, a relatively new platform, but I have accounts with, I think it's at least 15 local universities, really throughout every public university in Massachusetts, a number of private universities around, as well as the same in Rhode Island. And when we post positions on SchoolSpring, I can also post directly to Handshake, and it goes out to all of soon-to-be graduates from these universities. And we can connect directly with them, even arrange interviews right through this app. So it's another way that I wanted to see. I've made some connections, but I haven't posted a position there yet. But when we do, I will certainly give the committee some feedback to see how that process works. Let me see here. Under Family Community Engagement, Standard 3, I have included some information on some, just information shared with families and some opportunities that we're looking to connect, not just with families, but with the larger community, business community. Some of these things are dual enrollment, as we've already described. Another, I think, sort of a unique way that I'm trying to work with help our teachers is I worked with the South Coast Educational Collaborative this past fall to arrange a sheltered English immersion class, an SEI class, a 3-credit graduate course. I'm sorry?
Easy for you to say.
Exactly. A 3-credit graduate class offered through Bridgewater State. It's actually taking place at South Coast in Swansea. We maxed out, I think, at the 15, 16 teachers between the two districts took that course. It costs $500. We are paying the tuition reimbursement for that as part of the contractual obligations. So teachers were going from 4 to 7 p.m. on Tuesdays throughout the fall. Got this very important SEI endorsement that they're required to have, satisfying a lot of concerns from teachers. It's a stressful to know that you need to get this endorsement in order to keep your license in some areas. But we worked with the unique partnership between us, Bridgewater, and South Coast. They have a $1,200 graduate course for $500, and they're only traveling to Swansea to get it. So it was, we were the first district to work with South Coast on that. And as soon as the other districts heard about it, they were all jealous, and now they're trying to do the same. But it worked out really well, and I'm hoping to repeat that again, and maybe offer some other ways that we can partner like that together. I've bulleted a number of different things here for you. I will not go into all of them. Let me see. Lastly, Standard 4 is on professional culture, and the two areas that were identified were commitment to high standards and shared vision. Shared vision, there's some information about the upcoming events. We did have our teachers, students, and families were surveyed this past year because of the NEASC visit that took place in October. I didn't want to have one survey immediately follow another. But then once I go into this school year, you need people to be present in the school for a period of time to be able to comment on the teachers that they have and freshmen. So the timing just wasn't ideal to do it in the fall. That's why it's happening in January. Half the school year is under their belts, and everyone, I think, can accurately describe their and respond to their experiences here. So because of that, as you know, there's a lot of work that's taking place soon. It has not taken place since April or whenever when my goals were approved. So with that, obviously there's a lot more information in there. You can find it, take your time, and again, if you have questions, please let me know.
So on the note of taking time.
Yes.
I just wanted to say.
Take your time, but not too much time, right?
Not too much time. We had, in an effort to kind of respond to you as quickly as possible and try to get on the right schedule, not delay it. The committee at the last meeting agreed that we would take about 2 weeks to figure this out and return that to Robin by the 26th of this month. And then with the anticipation that at the February meeting, we would have, this is a major part of our agenda to kind of talk about, so.
Correct.
Is that
No,
sound
that-
okay to
no.
everybody?
Those deadlines, yeah.
Additionally, talking about time, I do want to take just a second to say that Mr. Schoonover alluded to this at one point during his presentation, but these goals were set in the spring. So the amount of time, April-May timeframe, so the amount of time that the superintendent has to have worked on these, if we're, yes, it's just a tiny bit on the short side. And that's part of the reason that we're trying to address it now, is we're trying to get onto a cycle where the evaluation takes place in the January-February timeframe. And so there is a little bit more time for goals. So if I could ask the committee members just to keep that in mind as you're doing your evaluation, then it is a little bit of a short cycle. And some of these goals, as Mr. Schoonover alluded to, are multi-year, rather aggressive.
So, in other words, we could not include the success of the January 25th date, because it hasn't taken place yet, which I want to.
Well, January 26th is when this is due, so.
Yeah, I guess we
Add
could-
an addendum.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this topic? Thank you for all that information, Mr. Schoonover. And again, if any committee members have any questions as they're going through their evaluation, please reach out to the superintendent for any additional information you need to complete the form. Returning to the agenda. Under other matters of information, item number 1, strategic planning session, January 25th.
Okay, Dr. Tony Bent will be facilitating the session with us. He just shared with me a draft agenda today. We're discussing it a little bit earlier this week, so I will be sharing that with you so you can take a look at that. We are, for the schedule, we had originally talked about possibly going until 3 or so in the afternoon. He thinks that you'll see if we start around 8:30, he thinks that we can be reasonably done by about 1 o'clock. So he said he's done this with some other districts, and he feels that that is an appropriate amount of time. He'll stick to the agenda and get the work done. So that's what we're thinking. I've sent out a number of invitations, and I did share a Google sheet.
I'm gonna do that too.
So,
So it's not just me.
so I did share a Google sheet with the 3 members of the school committee who are on that subcommittee. If you could, we can just work together to make sure that all the invitations are going out. And
Great.
I think that's it.
Hey, that's Chinese New Year.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, it should be a tremendous event if it follows in the footsteps of the event we had several years ago. It was very, very instrumental in assisting us with the formation of our strategic plan, and I really do look forward to it. And is there food?
There will be.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, we're being done by 1.
Well, there'll
There'll be
be
breakfast at least.
breakfast. We'll have something in the morning and some snacks.
Yeah.
We want to take care of the people who are giving up a
portion
good
of
chunk
their
of a Saturday to be with us. Yes.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Mark Center parent presentation scheduled for January 14th. Mr. Schoonover?
Yes, we have, this is happening on Tuesday night. I was just looking to see, have you received the flyer that went out? Okay. So it is in the, we have it listed as the Performing Arts Center at 6 p.m. Dr. Megan McCoy will be here. I've also asked all of our principals to share this information, so not only did they get it from central office, but they should have all received it from their principals as well. So we're hoping for some good attendance. As I was about to say, we have it in the Performing Arts Center. We did discuss whether the Distance Learning Center might be a better option. We just don't know how many people will be here. I'd say if it's under 50 or so, the DLC might be the way. We've set aside both spaces.
And if I could just
What
ask,
time is that?
6 o'clock.
6 p.m. Yep.
My fellow committee members, if there's any way that you can advertise the event through either your social media channels or as you're talking to some of your constituents, because I think that this is a great opportunity. In the past, we've done parents' academies, and I've attended them in the past, and it is such a great opportunity to learn from the experts, really on dealing with some things, especially in the area of bullying. Because this isn't just a school issue, it's a community issue. People have to understand and recognize what's in their home. They also have to understand and recognize changes in behaviors in their children. And I just think that having the opportunity to have a guest speaker come and talk to parents in an environment that's just really inviting and just helping them learn about how to identify these types of things is just a great opportunity. So thank you for that.
And kind of building on that thought, Mrs. Field, I know how hard it was and how hard you worked to get this done for the district.
Yeah.
So I do think that since this is a very good opportunity and we have an expert in the field coming in, that anyone that has any interest in this topic should attend, because again, it is a really good opportunity for us, and they're coming right to us. So, we couldn't have asked for more. So I do appreciate the effort. I do appreciate the opportunity, not only for this committee, but for the members of the community as well.
And we are fortunate to have, now MARC is the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center. It's an academic center at Bridgewater State University. We're fortunate to have it so close to us. If you visit the MARC Center website and see where they've worked in just about every state in the country. And internationally as well. They really are a leading expert in this subject matter, and they are 30 minutes away from us. And Dr. McCoy she's been here several times. She was actually with us training teachers at North on Monday. She was with us.
Monday.
Training teachers to be future trainers in the area of bullying and anti-bullying, bullying prevention. So we have at least several teachers in every one of the 5 schools who are trained, and she spoke to our students last January. She spoke with our faculty last January. I think it was a year ago this week that she came. So she's very familiar with us. She's worked with Ann Nassif and our ABC students at times. And we're pleased to have her. She's the program coordinator there at MARC, but she's also a professor of psychology at Bridgewater State. And really, she is an expert in this. So we're very happy to have her come speak to our parents about this.
Thank you. Any questions? Next item on the agenda is Students of the Month for November. So in your packets this evening, we have a listing of the Students of the Month. The first Student of the Month in music is Lindsay Aruda. In law and AP psychology is Joanna Bernaba. In English is Amelia Botello. In engineering technology is Chandler Doler. In mathematics is Jacob Milan. In science is Maya Newhook. In advanced glass and metal arts is Anthony Pacheco. Physical education is Matthew Remy. In business and personal finance is Gabrielle Sylvia. And in Spanish 1 ACP is Cole Taylor. Congratulations to all students of the month for the month of November. Next item on the agenda this evening is approval of minutes of prior meetings. I'm looking for a motion to approve the open session minutes of December 12th, 2019.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Unanimous. I'm looking for a motion to approve the executive session minutes of December 12th, 2019.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. There are no items not reasonably anticipated by the chair within 48 hours in advance of the meeting this evening. Are there any action items for future meetings that committee members would like to propose?
I think during the course of the meeting, we talked about getting an update on the electronic signature project. We'll hear from Mrs. Tell on that. And Mrs. Field graciously offered to get a summary of the state OPEB plan.
She also graciously said she'd get the 202-page document and print it for her.
Yeah.
So if you have an...
We could pick either one.
Yes, if you have an insomnia issue, that would be available for you.
Hey. Boring.
Any other items from any other committee members? Any public input
I
this
think,
evening? Oh,
I think we should revisit the parking issue,
okay.
discuss what our needs are, what our strategy is going forward.
Okay. So Robin, if you could have it as an agenda item. Anything else? Any public input this evening? Hearing none, I would like to, hearing none, the committee is going to go into executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal granted aid requirements, specifically to discuss the 2019 executive session minutes. The committee will not be returning to open session. Do I have a motion to that?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second by roll call. Mrs. Gagliardi?
Aye.
Mr. Pierce?
Aye.
Mr. Giliducci?
Aye.
Mrs. Field?
Aye.
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
And the chair also votes aye. Just to reiterate, just in case I forgot to say it, the committee will not be returning to open session.